Welcome to the Pastor's Podcast. This is Pastor Scott, and today we are with Natalie and Robbie Carey.
Hi.
Hi.
And David. David, what's your last name?
Demena.
Yep. I knew that, but not recently. Because we met actually at Robbie and Natalie's wedding.
Yes.
Okay, which we're going to get into that. So Robbie and Natalie and David are here just to share a little bit about their stories about what the last year has been like in their lives, what the Lord's been doing. I think it's been a unique story, a whole host of different unique stories in a number of different ways. Why don't you introduce yourselves and start with just how long you've been coming to Cornerstone, and we're going to start with you, Natalie. She's looking nervous. How long you've been coming to Cornerstone, and how you know each other? How about that?
I'm Natalie. I've been coming to Cornerstone, I guess, since Robbie and I started dating.
October. Yeah, October.
Yeah.
Not this last October.
Like a year and a half.
So about a year and a half. Okay, almost a year and a half.
I don't remember perfectly.
All right.
It's been around that long.
And it's been quite a year.
It really has. Huh?
You dated.
We dated.
You dated in a pandemic.
Uh-huh.
You got engaged in a pandemic.
Uh-huh.
You got married in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Right? It's...
Yeah. Yeah, all that happened.
I mean, how long was it between when you started dating and when you got married?
8 months.
8 months.
Yeah.
Boom. Just like that.
Boom.
Just like that. I mean,
don't mess around.
The quarantine slowed some things down and it sped other things up.
I guess so.
All right. So Robbie.
Yep.
How long have you been around?
I started attending Cornerstone summer of 2017 when I came to UCLA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And are you still going to UCLA?
I am not.
You are not.
I graduated last year during the pandemic, which was a very interesting experience. So I had about roughly half of a year of pandemic school, and then went to work in the industry after that.
Awesome. And David, what about you?
Hi. Yeah, I moved to Los Angeles recently. My first time going to Cornerstone was actually literally the morning after I arrived in Los Angeles for the first time. I met Robbie on Facebook, and I asked, and he was like offering he had an extra bed in his room basically, and I met him on Facebook. We talked, and I ended up like moving into his apartment before I'd ever met him. And then the first ever like the night after I arrived, he took me to Cornerstone. So then after that I like church hopped around for a bit until the pandemic kind of made that impossible. And then I kind of basically because they were just watching the live stream at home. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of like would wake up and they're already watching the live stream on the TV. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll just sit down and join. And then basically I just kept joining the live stream. And then, a bit after that, once, they got married and I like had new roommates, I still decided to come back. I was especially once we started having physical services, I was like, okay, yeah, I really want to do an outdoor service. That sounds great. So
it started with your roommate on the couch in the live stream, but then once you got married and you guys weren't living together anymore, you're like, oh, okay, like I've actually got to decide whether
right, yeah,
this is what I'm actually going to do with my Sunday mornings.
Right, exactly, yeah. And especially having the outdoor service where I felt like, oh, this is a really, like, it's exciting to be with people, but it's also a very responsible way to do it. That was like the biggest push for me. Like, okay, yeah, let's commit to this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so I want to hear just a little bit about what the Lord's been doing in your lives over the course of the last year. I mean, if you were to describe, maybe even particularly what the Lord's been teaching you, maybe if the last year's too long, even just over the last few months, any of you can start. But what have you?
Yeah, everyone's looking at me.
Yeah, I know you started first, and so you don't have to. No pressure, but whoever you'd like to.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's like milestones within the last year where we've just stopped and like thought about what we've learned. like specifically Natalie and I as a couple.
Mm.
There's like aspects of that which involve like our marriage, obviously, like now like being newlyweds, like the patience and the dynamic and like how we relate to each other now living together. Those are all ways that God's like working and growing. I've seen like a lot of this like God pushing me to develop in ways and that with that forefront. And then looking at the whole entire year, just the roller coaster of the pandemic, it's like all of these different things going on. Like I guess I keep on coming back to the sense of this faith that God is good and that God is going to provide within every single one of these moments, and that we are not alone. That's been like a continual thing that I've been taught through this like entire year.
Such an important reminder, I think we've all needed to cling to, right?
Yeah.
That reality, that truth that I'm not alone, particularly when I feel like I'm at my most alone, right? Whether there's other people in my house or apartment or not, that's something that I think we relate clinging to. So tell me a little bit about what it was. Half of you guys were dating for maybe 3 or 4 months, and then everything shut down. What was it like to date in the midst of all of this?
Do you want me to start, babe? Or?
I just don't really know. I mean,
It's hard to start a conversation about it all. David was joking, like when we were talking about this podcast, that like Natalie and I are going to be going back and forth because we'll always like try to fine tune the story.
I'll be like, no, you're telling it wrong. Let me tell it.
But I guess the best way I would say it is that the situation was very unique because Natalie, when I met Natalie, she was living in an apartment with another girl, but prior to that, she had renovated a van.
Here we go.
And
is he about to tell a part of the story that you don't want told?
No,
You're like, here we go.
It's totally fine. Like, it's just like
to understand.
I think I should meet some people before we go telling it.
To understand the full story, I feel like that's a key component.
Yeah.
It is a key component.
Okay.
All right. So what's the key component?
Because okay.
So Natalie is awesome, and she moved. I'm a little biased. I'm gonna say it.
So good.
She's awesome, and I'm biased because I'm her husband. But
I just want to know why you have to caveat what you're gonna say by saying that. Like, I'm about to tell you a story, but I want you to keep in mind Natalie's awesome.
So okay. Natalie moved to. I'm just gonna start from.
Yeah.
She moved to LA.
Oh my gosh! Here we go.
Natalie, like, hear me out. Okay.
Starting with me moving to LA.
Hold
Wasn't
on.
this just about us dating in a pandemic?
Okay.
Okay.
Give me the bandwidth. Come
All
on.
right, here we go.
Come on. So Natalie, she moved to LA, and amidst her time in LA, she realized, why am I paying this enormous amount of rent to live here when I could do something so simple as renovate a van to live in?
And like, furthermore, another thing was I was like paying, I don't know, like $1,200 a month in rent, but every day I would just go home from work and like sit in the same little corner of my room and just like read. And that, like, I didn't use very much space at all.
The cost compared to what you were utilizing it for was just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I wasn't
absurd.
like having people over all the time. I wasn't like, I don't know. I would just use one little corner of my room and that was it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I'll continue. Yeah. But that led into where for a season she was living in her van.
Like a couple years, yeah.
Yeah. And when I met her, though, she wasn't living in her van. And she showed me her van was like basically showing like it had a functional kitchen, bathroom, etc. Like full-blown living space.
Oh, okay. Since we're doing this, I had like a solar panel. I could charge like my iPad, my laptop, my phone, everything. Wow. I had running water, a stove, like a toilet, everything.
We might have to do a completely separate podcast on like
van
conversions.
The van was
amazing.
Okay. We still have it. And
that's awesome.
It's awesome.
So with that, when I first met Natalie, she was not living in her van. She was living in an apartment in Culver City. And there was a transition period when she went back to moving into her van. And during that period of time, when she was living in her van again, while we were dating, that's when the pandemic hit.
Right.
And that was a very interesting, like, monumental
Got
moment
it.
of, like, I'm not only, like, living in a van, but the world's all alone. Like everyone's alone and isolated, but potentially I'm just isolated by myself in a van.
Right, because keep in mind when the pandemic started, like people were freaking out. They were like buying all the toilet paper, all the dry foods, everything, and like people were like, "Oh my gosh!" Like no one knew what to expect, what was coming. You know what I mean? And not only that, I was nannying, and the family that I was nannying for, the dad was a wedding DJ and the mom was a wedding photographer. So all of a sudden they didn't have work, and they were like, "We're really sorry, but like we don't have any work for you because we're home with like our kids and
now.
and we like and so I lost my job. Everything is like closing, all the gyms closed, and I would work out in the gym in the morning and then just shower at the gym afterward. And so I didn't have my shower, I didn't have my job anymore, and my church before, like, I guess I have just made the transition to being at Cornerstone, but it was Metro Church in Santa Monica. And so it was a cafe during the week, and I would go and I would work there, and like all my friends were there. Like a lot of the people that went to the church were very involved in the cafe, and I would volunteer there on the weekends and handing out food to the homeless and stuff. So I had actually like a really good system set up for living in my van. I could go to the gym, work out, shower, go to work, and then like work at the cafe, hang out with my friends. Like I was just happy and good. But then when the pandemic happened, like that church, that cafe closed. I lost my job, lost the shower, like the gym. So all of a sudden it was like, oh no, like, uh-oh.
Yeah, like everything fell apart.
Yeah.
I would say that was like a pivotal point in our relationship. It was like, what are we going to do
And
now?
you'd been dating a few months at that point.
Yeah, but we had already started premarital counseling with the Woolseys.
Yep.
We had already been talking about marriage. So it wasn't like, oh no, we should just get married.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So let's put a little plug in for premarital counseling. How is that something you would recommend couples do? Like if people are dating, they're like, well, maybe we're thinking about marriage. Was that helpful for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I realized people can't tell that I'm nodding my head when I nod at you.
That's so funny.
So yes, like a resounding yes. Like it was great because it wasn't just couples counseling. It was like we felt like we just had an older couple that was mentoring us and like showing us the way with like obviously Cornerstone curriculum, but like now looking at it, like we have lifelong friends from them, and they were at our wedding, and they've just supported us through things outside of counseling 100%.
Yeah, exactly. Like people we can really look up to and who really care about us and have our back. It's been really important.
That's awesome. And Chris and Nikki are amazing.
I know they are.
Yeah, I love it. So then you were already kind of doing this premarital counseling thing. You were talking about marriage, but then all of life kind of just, so were you planning on getting married this summer previously, or was that all of a sudden like
actually
plans changed?
That
we
was
were
the
in
plan,
like in like August.
Okay.
We were gonna wait for Robbie to graduate, and after like a couple months, like just to let him graduate, and I don't know, transition. Just August seemed like a good time. We asked my mom, because my mom is like so busy all the time. I said, we're thinking about like getting married. When would be like, I think I was just, no, she volunteered this information. I think she was like, well, I'm so busy, blah, blah, blah. If you guys could get married in August or November or something, I'd be able to make it. And I was like, wow, Mom.
Yeah. I can pen you in then.
Yeah. I was like, well, first of all, we're going to get married whenever we want. You can make it, like, not changing that. But
and we know for a fact that like if we did pick July, she would have still been there. 100%.
Yeah, she would have been there. She was just being like, I don't know, whatever.
So what was it like then getting married in the midst of all this? So full disclosure, this is actually the date that I met you, David, because you were the videographer.
Yes.
For the wedding, for this, and we all just went hiking, up in the Malibu Hills with the Woolseys and David and a photographer. How did the Lord bring you to that? And what's that, I don't know, what did he teach you through this? Like all of a sudden, wait, our wedding plans, these thoughts we had, even as you were starting to talk and have premarital counseling and pursue this, everything got completely changed. And all of a sudden it's like the, whatever, 8 of us, seven of us, I mean, that was very different than what you had originally.
It was so nice.
Was it?
It was so nice.
Was it?
The thought of planning a wedding, like even just thinking about it, I'm already married and I'm like thinking of planning a wedding just is so stressful sounding. Like, like even if when the pandemic is over, if we were like, oh, we can like do another wedding celebration or something and everyone come, like, oh, that just sounds so stressful. But I know it's like would be worth it. Like, but I don't know. I was very fine with how everything went. Very happy. Yeah.
So what was the background, Nat, for like us specifically picking this?
I was just out hiking with a family that I had nannied for, and it's like, this is really pretty. We'll do it here. There was like just a really beautiful open meadow, like just so beautiful in Topanga with like mountains in the background. And then you walk down this little trail and there's like this huge oak tree. It was like, which
was amazing.
It was so beautiful. And that never would have been able to happen. Like we would never have gotten that spot in a traditional wedding. Because we couldn't have had that many people.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
No, it was a magical spot.
It was really
incredible. Yeah, it was gorgeous. I mean, so since we're putting in plugs, both for premarital counseling, we should also put a plug in for hiking in the Malibu Hills, the Santa Monica Mountains. Like, there's some gorgeous overlooks, just all sorts of places. That, we did a bunch of that this summer too, and it's just a beautiful, quick place to go and be like, okay, I'm in creation, and the Lord is like reminding me of just how big and vast and beautiful He is in so many different ways. So you guys went through from last October, basically over the course of a year, you met, started dating, got engaged, went through a pandemic, got married. Like graduated. Yeah. Right. Lost your job, lost all the things. Like, you were talking about a year of crazy transition. How have you seen the Lord working through that? Like what have you learned from Him, and how have you seen Him in the midst of kind of this, probably the most transitional year in your lives?
It's so funny because when you say it like that, I'm like, wow, yeah, a lot has happened. But it just doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to fathom. Like,
it just feels so normal.
Like reflecting upon it, I feel like we like continuously are like, wow, like God supplied this. God like worked in this specific way. Like just looking at like where we're at right now and seeing like how God like divinely shaped like my time at UCLA to make it so there's security within this moment. Like when it comes to like me, like career wise, like I feel extremely blessed for that. And then like looking with like Natalie with like how we were when we first got married, I was like, oh my gosh, like we only have like 10 days to find an apartment because we're moving out of our apartment that's by UCLA.
He was freaking out.
I was freaking out.
Oh my gosh, we have 10 days left of this lease until we have to get out of here.
Nothing. And you didn't have anything lined up?
Nothing lined up.
And I was like,
wait. When you left on the honeymoon in the van, I remember you like left on like you had 10 days. And
no. Because
after you got back.
That was after we got back. So it was like July 20th or something. We have to be out July 30th. And in July 20th, we don't have an apartment or anything lined up. And yeah, Robbie was like,
I was a nervous wreck.
Yeah. But I was like, we have 10 whole days. Like,
we're getting a little snapshot of both of your personalities here too, I think.
Yeah.
We had 10 whole days.
Yeah, I was like, we have so much time.
Yeah. For those who follow the Enneagram, I'm a 6 and Natalie's an 8. And together we just make a great pair.
Yeah.
Together you make 14. That's awesome. That's awesome. The magic number.
Yeah.
So so in the midst of all of this, I want to ask you a little bit more and about kind of how the Lord's worked even in the last number of months and the Learning Center and things like that. But David, in the midst of all this, this is a kind of parallel to this is when you moved to LA, you moved in with Robbie, who you guys got connected randomly on Facebook.
Yep.
And I mean, was this basically like he like was advertising a room and
Yes.
yeah, and you're like, I need somewhere in LA to stay.
Right. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
the Lord kind of sovereignly connected you guys. So you've only joined Cornerstone more recently, right? How have you seen the Lord working in all this? What's He been teaching you in the midst of, I mean, a huge transition year for you in moving to a new city and building new relationships and trying to, navigate that.
I guess I feel like I'm always having the same, I don't know. I feel like God's been teaching me just the same thing over and over, and I keep not learning it. Or it's just like, because I guess before moving to LA, it was always like, can I take the big leap of faith of moving to LA, right?
Uh-huh.
And so then once I've done that, then it's like God, I did the faith thing. I'm ready for exciting adventures of making films. And God's like, no, it's not now. You can wait. It's just like, no, but I'm ready to do the films. Yeah. I feel like it's just constantly. I think the thing that God is always teaching me is to find the joy in where I am now. And that's like, and then the unexpected, like the way that He does, provide in the unexpected, right? Because like it's like, I feel like there's always unexpected challenges, but He's always providing unexpected answers to those challenges. And even if they're not like so far, it still hasn't been like the things that I've been hoping for, the reason that I came to LA still has not come to fruition yet. But like there have been so many other things that have happened, like problems that I didn't know I was gonna have, that kind of thing, where there's like amazing unexpected answers to it. And I do feel like it's obvious that this was all part of the plan, that everything, that He always knows exactly what I need right now, like what I need now, not what I want now, and He's always providing those things. And so I think the thing I'm learning constantly, like ever since I moved here, basically, is just like, I know things aren't going the way you want them to go, but things are going the way I need them to go. God's saying they're going the way I need them to go, and they're going, and you don't know this, but this is how you need it too. And that's really good.
That's such I think such a helpful reminder, and I think something we can all relate to on different levels. I think something so many different people can relate to, right? Where they're like, wait, I moved to LA, or I moved to West LA, or I moved to this area, or I started a new thing, and wait, it's not looking like my plan, right? This isn't, it's not progressing the way it kind of looked in my head. And what do we do then? Does that mean God has forsaken us, right? Or is He working just in different ways? And I think there's so much, as I appreciate, there's so much wisdom in even just the ability to, in the midst of all of that, look and say, well, wait, okay, I can trust, and I'm sure it's a fight. I think it's a fight for all of us, but I can trust that God's doing what I need. I can trust that He's meeting me where He knows I need to be, and providing sometimes in ways that are surprising and exciting in that way, and also sometimes calling us to trust Him, to trust Him with that. How have you all seen your stories and relationships have been intertwined, particularly over the last year? How have you seen the Lord working in each other's lives?
Lots of ways.
Okay.
I guess since we were just talking about David, I've seen like David has the craziest stories that he's experienced.
So true.
Like, oh my gosh, like we can't dive into them, but like I swear, like there's a ton.
David's all, yeah, please don't.
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing, like to summarize it all, like I've seen so much growth in David when it comes to like this facing these challenges in life and this like having to rely on God and have the faith to know that God is working within every single one of these challenges. It's been really cool to honestly see it happen. Like this not being like this like kind of like an indirect person is watching for like closely, but like not from afar, like David experiencing like potential opportunity after potential opportunity, and then seeing God say, no, not yet. Or maybe yes, but then this shifts a little bit, and then David throughout that, like spending time and being, all right, God, like I'm here, I'm waiting, I'm present. That's just something I've just admired a lot. I like in seeing David grow
thanks.
within it. Yeah.
Sorry, what was the question again?
Just how have you seen the Lord working in in
Okay.
each other's lives?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess to add to what you said about David, seeing God provide for David, we've seen that too. Like just different things like losing your phone and then like being like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And then like a day later, someone that he works with being like, I have an extra phone. It's like, whoa, wow, that's a big deal. Like that's something you need. And like, yeah, I think that's just a big deal. Or like a car breaking down and then someone being like, here, you can just use my car. Like your life doesn't function without those things. Like it doesn't function like efficiently or whatever, however you want to say it. Like, you know, it's easy to say, oh, we don't need those things, blah, blah, blah. But like, come on, like if you need to pay your bills and you don't have a car to get to work, like, so I think it's just, seeing God provide for those practical things.
I mean, I think it's such a powerful reminder. Both, I think we can tend to forget to acknowledge those things, right? Those the practical ways God is providing daily. These, in a sense, answers. These are the answers to our prayers for our daily bread. Oftentimes, right? We're like, hey, Lord, will you just give me enough for today? And He's like, okay, like I'm gonna weave all these things together. I think we also forget about that in our generosity to one another. You know, I mean, it inspires a call and a heart for one another. And when somebody's phone breaks, if you're like, oh, I have an extra phone, like you can think of that flippantly, right? I think you can think of like, oh, I don't know, I'm not using it, who cares? But like God chose to use you as an answer to someone else's prayer, right? Like let's not miss that, right? Let's not miss that, like that God is, you know, divinely orchestrating this thing that sat in my drawer for 6 months, for, in a sense, such a time as this, right? For this, and I think so that true. Even in the midst of, particularly in the midst of this like isolation and the difficulties going on, the Lord's answered prayers in all sorts of different ways that it's easy to miss, or it's easy not to recognize or see.
And I feel like another detail that we haven't mentioned, like just about the phone incident, is like, the phone that I received from that was significantly better than the phone I lost.
Much better.
So yeah, like I lost an iPhone 6 and then I got an iPhone 8 Plus. It's like, and I think that's an important detail just because it shows like, God, like you think like, God, how could you let me lose my phone? Like, how dare you, you know? And then it's like, you know, and I think that's to extrapolate it to all the other things. It's like, God, how could you put a massive pandemic right in the middle of me trying to move to this new country? Not new country, but new city, you know? And then it's like, yeah, but you don't know what I've got coming, you know? And it's going to be better than you think.
And
the
car is better too.
Yes. Oh,
much better.
Oh yeah. Not to mention how drastically different the car situation is.
And what's fascinating to me is like because both the phone and the car are blessings in and of themselves, and they're also, to your point, David, I love where you're going here. Like it's also an analogy, right? There are these pictures of what God's like. Well, yes, they are, and yes, that's a blessing. But it's not just about the phone. It's not just about the car, right? It's about my nature, right? Yeah. And it's about even just these like subtle little reminders that like you can trust, because you could also say, okay, like it's a phone and it's a car, but it's not my career dreams. Like why isn't that like, having, and the Lord's like, whoa, wait, this is me. I'm both good and I'm generous. I'm also wise, right? I'm also loving, and I'm directing each one of our lives in these ways that are thankfully way better than what we could ever plan. Because this wasn't a country move for you, but you did grow up. You grew up in China, right?
That's true. Yeah.
And so, how long ago did you move to the States?
So I moved to China when I was 3. I lived there until I went to college at Asbury University in Kentucky.
Okay.
So I've been here in this country for 5 years now.
Okay.
5.5.
But that's still a huge transition.
Yes.
Right. and from Asbury University to Los Angeles, right? And kind of the all the logistical dynamics and opportunities to trust the Lord that provides, and to get to see both these like little blessings that I don't even want to call them little, like that might even be a misnomer, right? These significant practical blessings, that the Lord uses to both bless you and remind you, like, hey, like I'm here, I'm working, and you can trust me in so many different ways. That's such a cool, such a helpful reminder.
Because those blessings only feel little once they're met, right? Those needs only feel little once they're met.
That is such a great point, Natalie.
Yeah, when you're in it.
When you're in it, it's like no, that need's not little. Like this is,
so true.
Yeah. Going a week, like even just a week without your phone, you realize, like, oh boy, I have a lot of things on my phone.
Well, yeah, it's interwoven, right? Yeah, with everything we're trying to do, and practically, and so that's a great point. So, Natalie, one of the other pieces of, I know, the story of the last season has been, you've been working at the Learning Center.
Yeah. Right?
This, like, we just kind of up and started a learning center because kids weren't in school, and we knew there was a need. We knew there was a need to just help facilitate the distance learning that wasn't being met, particularly in our community. And we saw the need. We're like, let's try this. But really on the ground, you and Aaron have been the hands and feet of that. What has that been like? How have you seen the Lord in as you've been working in the Learning Center and helping kids kind of virtually school in the midst of this season?
I have been loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it a lot. I'm like, I don't want them to go back to school. I know it's like good and they should. But yeah, it's been just really fun. It really is starting to feel like we're all like, they're all friends. And like, I don't know, we play this game called Zombie, which Robbie hears about like all the time.
A lot.
And I know Pastor Matt has seen it. He's been in the hallway when we run by screaming, and Nikki's seen it. But like, we just chase each other, we're screaming. And I know that's not about their learning, but it feels really important because like,
totally,
they're so happy.
Yeah.
Like, we're running through the hallways screaming like, like just having fun. Like after school's over, obviously, not while they're supposed to be in class. But it's been really fun, and it's just like, I don't know how to describe it other than like just the vibe. The vibe is just so good. Like, there's just so much positivity and like joy. And then when they're in their classes, I mean, yeah, it's Zoom classes. I don't know. It's a lot of like, make sure your camera's on. Like just and emailing teachers and asking like, how can we help support you, and what are you guys working on in class right now? Like, what workbook pages are you guys working on? And like helping, like, some students, it's easier for some students than others. Some kids can just like, I don't even know how, because I couldn't do it, but they can just sit down and like put their headphones on and listen to their class and just do the whole thing and like no problems. I don't get it. And then some kids who are probably more like me are just like, oh my gosh, why are we here? Why do I have to do this? Won't put their headphones on, just don't want to be there. And it's been really cool just to be able to kind of take the role of the teacher, because it's just not working, like the Zoom thing. They just don't want to be doing it, and be like, let me show you how to do this math problem. Let me like listen to you read out loud and like help you pronounce words and stuff like that. So it's been really cool just to feel like we're actually making a difference. It's not just like, oh, we feel good because we're here. It's like, no, we're like actually helping these kids like be able to move on to the next grade, so when they go back, they're not struggling. You know what I mean? And then also just like being such a fun place that they want to be at. They're always like, their parents are always telling us like they're so excited to be here. Like they get really happy to come here. So
it is such an incredible blessing. I mean, I cannot thank you enough for not just for the fact that you're doing it and providing that, but for your heart in that and the ways that the Lord is using that. I mean, it's so, what a huge need, right? Particularly for kids that maybe, right, if they've got connectivity issues, or if their parents have to work and they're like, I don't know what to do with my kids, or what, like the alternative is so drastic.
Really bad, yeah.
And so to not just provide, oh, okay, I guess you can come here and use our Wi-Fi. We'll make sure your headphones are on, right? But to provide so much of what, particularly these kids that are already struggling, so much of what they're missing. Zombie tag, of which being a huge part.
Yeah.
I mean, right? I mean, because it's not like, oh, we just can provide everything they're missing. Just make sure their headphones are on and their cameras are on. No, that can't do it.
They want to be there.
Yeah.
Like they want to. It's school,
that's huge.
but they want to be there.
They want the social aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
Particularly in the midst of this.
Yeah.
And so,
and I love it. Like I'm having so much fun there. So you know what I mean? It's good when the students want to be there and the teachers are like, this is so great, you know?
Yeah.
And it's also been cool, babe, like seeing, podcast, babe is Natalie, just so you guys know.
You weren't talking to me?
David.
Not Scott or David. It's also really cool seeing the kids showing up in the congregation as well. I don't know how many people were formerly or like this came into the congregation, but like seeing them that's somebody that Natalie works with during the week. They're now like a part of the church body as well.
Yeah, they're getting more connected to the church.
Or maybe we're just getting more connected.
Yeah.
Or maybe we are.
I mean, I feel like in so many ways you are like obviously being the hands and feet of Christ, and in this very particular, unique way, the Lord's allowed to use you to be like the hands and feet of the church in this like very particular direction. And by the church, I don't mean like the church organization, but like the church like as a family. And it is so encouraging, so exciting to see. And I mean, gosh, what a huge difference. Huge difference it does make, both in the midst of this season and also what it conveys to these families, to the schools, to the teachers, that like that this is something that we genuinely care about, that we that's worth sacrificing for to us, not just because they're my kids and I've got to like figure out what to do with them, but because we see these needs in the community, we see these needs in portions of our church family, but even larger than that, just in our local community here. And so it's a huge, I can't thank you enough. It's so exciting. And I also can't thank those that have supported the Learning Center in all sorts of different ways as well. It's been a huge blessing to see that. I mean, it's been in that sense a dream come true of mine as well in this season, that the Lord has allowed us the privilege of getting to be a part of that.
Yeah. And that's a good point. I didn't think about how this is like, I guess, witnessing to like the city, I guess, in a way. Like the teachers will be like, oh, I saw so-and-so wasn't at the church yesterday. I'm glad to see they're back. And I'm like, oh, it's funny. They didn't say Learning Center. They said the church. But I didn't think about that until you just said that. I'm like, oh, like teachers are like seeing churches are opening up and like giving these kids a safe space to learn and get support. So that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anything else that I'm gonna wrap up, but anything else that we missed that you guys were like, you're hearing these stories and you're like, oh, there's one thing I wanted to point out, or
Well, I wanted to say because we asked the question about like what do you see in each other's lives, and I didn't get to talk about what I saw in their life.
Yeah.
I was thinking of a great answer, then we moved on to Learning Center. I was like, oh, well.
Awesome.
No, but I was gonna say I feel like it's so like now that now that they're married, they got an apartment and they did this thing where they like. Because Natalie's so crazy particular about.
You didn't.
Not in a bad way.
Wait a minute. Detail oriented.
Detail oriented, yeah.
Crazy particular.
No,
Natalie.
This podcast was going so well. And we were almost done.
Natalie, first off, doesn't like having it being called particular.
You don't like it being called particular?
But then you add the word crazy. Ooh.
I'm sorry.
Detail oriented.
But okay, but basically what I was gonna say is what's really cool is they actually just like made their apartment completely bare bones, and they just like were slowly accumulating things that fit the aesthetic. I hope it didn't sound like I was trying to be insulting.
I was just giving you a hard time.
Because they did a really good like every time I go over to their apartment, they're like adding a new there's always like a new like piece like now there's plants, now there's this shelf, now there's like literally every time I go over there's like a new thing, and I feel like but I feel like it's also the same with their relationship. I feel like every time I go over now, like I see like a new way about how they've learned to work together in like I'm always seeing like I feel like they just every time they get to know each other better, and they're always like the dynamic between them and the way they interact and like who's doing what is like it's always like slowly improving and slowly like as they start to realize like, oh, Natalie cares a lot about this thing, and so I'm going to leave that to her, but then I care a lot about this thing, and so I'll do that. And, like I feel like they're, and like the vocabulary they use, like they're always like as they understand each other's vocabulary better, I start to hear like Robbie say Natalie words and, stuff like that. Yeah. So I feel like that's obviously God's work, in them and in their commitment to him, like where they're like we're all the way in this, and we're all and God always providing better understanding of each other and better teamwork and better yeah
That's
thanks, David.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, David.
that is that's such a cool picture, David, of the newlywed season too, in a sense, because I one of the things that it's kind of cliche among Christians is they're like, oh, you're newlywed. Oh yeah, I'm just realizing how much of a sinner I am, right? Or it's just it's bringing out all my mess, or it's just showing it how, oh my gosh, this is so hard, and and that's in some ways that's true. There's there's truth to it. But I think the flip side of it actually is the beautiful picture of what is going on is this particularly intensified opportunity to be learners of one another, right? That's going to continue for the entirety of your relationship, but that is particularly intense when you're, learning how to live together, when you're adjusting to married life. And while it both exposes, and yes, it does expose our sin and it shows our selfishness, and it also demonstrates in such a powerful way the goodness and kindness of a God who knows us, and the ways in which love manifests itself in knowledge, in change, in adaptation for the sake of one another. And so to hear you describe that, actually, I think is number one, a really affirming and just a cool observation about this season in their lives. And I think, but it's also a really beautiful picture of what all sorts of different seasons of transition, and particularly relational transition, can be like for us, and even a really cool vision of what a description of the season of the newlywed season as well. So yeah, thanks for that, and thank you guys so much for sharing this. Thanks for sharing a little bit of what this crazy year has been like in all of your lives, and how it's both super unique but also been an opportunity to see God's faithfulness. I mean, I that's what I hear over and over as I hear the different aspects of your story, is just God's faithfulness over and over. I'm so thankful for that. It's such a sweet reminder for all of us to get to rejoice and see and acknowledge that together. So thank you guys for being here. Thanks for joining me, and thank everybody for listening. We love you and we miss you, and we will see you virtually or in person on Sunday.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having
And
us.
thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, follow.
Click that little bell to get
Perfect.
notifications.
Smash the like button.
Smash the like button. I like that.